Hello everyone. Welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. In this one, we are finally going to be taking a look at all of the cards inside of Bright Lights. I'm not sure how many parts this video will be because we have a lot of different types of cards to talk about, but this video will contain the new heroes, the fabled, all the new equipment, and probably at least some of the new cards. Evos probably, and probably the Evo upgrades and the items. If there's any more than that, well, the video will probably be longer than it already would be, which it probably will be pretty long. So, with that said, let's just get on started. The first hero we're going to take a look at is Dash I.O. Dash is a 4 intellect, 36 health mechanologist hero. She has the abilities: you may look at the top card of your deck at any time, and once per turn you may play a mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck as though it were an instant, and it costs an additional 1 to play. So Dash, a lot of the heroes in this set, which I guess there's only 3, but 2 of the heroes in this set I could compare to Wizard, strangely enough, where they want to play with the top card of their deck and they want to be able to play things as instants. It's very weird that 2 heroes work that way. And Dash kind of does work like that, to where you'll always know what the top card of your deck is. And if it's an item you want, can't be one of the 2 cost items that she normally plays, but if you have like a Teklo core on top, or you have one of the new items on top, you can play them for, yes, an increased cost, but you're still getting the item from the top of your deck, so it is like drawing a card. And you can do it on your opponent's turn, since you can do it as an instant. So even if your opponent goes first, you can still filter your hand a little bit if they decide not to attack you, which is a really nice thing. Actually, both of the heroes that I would say act a little like a wizard have that similar function of they can do things on an opponent's turn right away if the opponent goes first. So this hero does get a lot of value from that look at the top effect, as well as boosting. You always know what the card you're going to boost is. You can use boost to cycle through your top card, as well as if you like see a hyperdriver on top, you could banish it to a boost for your Hyper X3. But I think the main idea of Dash will really show when we take a look at her weapon. First, we have Dash Database, who's just the same effect, but on a young hero with 18 HP. We're not really going to talk about the young heroes too much. But the brand new weapon is Symbiosis Shot. Symbiosis Shot is a Dash specialization 2-handed gun. It has the action to remove a steam counter to attack, and when a mechanologist item enters the arena under your control, if Symbiosis Shot has fewer than 6 steam counters, you put a steam counter on it. So, this effect pretty much just gives you free gunshots every turn. This helps promote an aggressive playstyle that's not too all in on the boost with something like a Hanabi Blaster that something like Max would do. But this playstyle of wanting to play some of the other cards we'll see in the set, mainly cards with Galvanize that have synergy with items being destroyed, because a lot of items are going to go in and out of play very fast since you're playing hopefully one on each player's turn if possible. Symbiosis Shot also gets the ability to be able to be fired multiple times. You will need to find a way to give it go again or gain extra action points, but with one of the other mechanics we'll talk about with the next hero, you probably will at some point in a game be able to have an extra action point. As well as the funny thing here of if you can somehow pump the Symbiosis Shot and your opponent blocks with it, you can bring in a powder keg with Dash and get rid of their card that's blocking it. So that's probably pretty niche, but is possible. So I think this will only see play with the new dash. I don't think it's easy enough to get steam counters compared with the old dash, but I also don't think that the old pistol will see play in the new dash because that is a pistol and not a gun, so they have different synergies, but I do think that the old pistol's better in old dash because she has easier access to the other pistol synergy items that she plays currently. So this is probably just going to be reserved for the new dash where it can stack up pretty fast, but with that, I think this kind of does complete the package of what Dash.io wants to be doing, which is definitely really nice. Moving on, we have my favorite hero in the set, Max the Hype Nitro. Max is a 4 intellect, 40 health mechanologist hero. He has the ability of once per turn action, pay 2 resource, create a hyperdriver token with 2 steam counters on it, activate this ability only if you have boosted this turn, and hyperdrivers you control get Crank. Before we talk about the first ability, let's talk about Crank. That's that mechanic I kind of alluded to. Crank is a mechanic that can be given to, that items have, or in Max's case, given to hyperdrivers, to where as this item enters the arena, you may remove a steam counter from it, and if you do, you gain an action point. So Max can play hyperdrivers or any other, or if you have Crank on any of your other items, you can just have it enter play, remove a steam counter, get your action point back. Sort of a hastening factor to most of your items, where before none of them really had go again. They would just straight end your turn, but with Crank, you can try to get a little bit of value out of them the turn you play them, although they might not last as long. The first ability Max has, we'll talk about that real quick, makes hyperdriver tokens. This is the first time things like that will exist. Hyperdriver tokens are really cool. They're pretty much a yellow hyperdriver. Obviously they cost 2 because Max's ability costs 2, but since you're getting an infinite generation of them in theory, having this ability cost 2 makes sense, since you could always just have paid the 1 from the last driver to make a new driver. Having the limitation of only being able to use it if you boosted this turn isn't that bad, since the design space for Max is just he wants to be the aggressive one. He wants to play a ton of boost cards every turn, and you don't really see that in his signature weapon, but the Hanabi Blaster from, I forget what set it was from, but from a few sets ago, is definitely a tool that Max can definitely take use of. Right now, I'm testing a lot with Banksy. I think Banksy is pretty good. I haven't really tested Hanabi Blaster that much, but I do think Hanabi Blaster probably will end up being the main weapon that Max will use, considering how consistently he can stack it up, as well as the want to use Banksy, his signature weapon, does feel a little weird, to where your opponent can just block it and it removes the entire use of Banksy, that you could have just like made the driver and just kept it on 2 to not lose to not just, like, you don't lose a steam counter to make your opponent spend a card, but I guess making your opponent spend a card is pretty good in an aggro deck. Although now I did talk a little bit about Banksy, so let's just go fully look at it. Banksy is a 3-power 2-handed wrench. It is a max specialization, and it says once per turn action for 1 resource attack. Activate this ability only if you've cranked this turn, and cranked is just do the crank function of removing a steam counter from an item when it enters. And when Banksy hits a hero, you put a steam counter on an item you control with Crank. Remember, hyperdrivers all have Crank. It will probably be a hyperdriver in most situations, but a card that I've been playing a lot, Penetration Script, also has Crank, and that's definitely a way better target. I think Banksy is pretty good. I wish Banksy said hits and not hits a hero, because I would have loved to play this into the Draw My matchup, but sadly it doesn't. You have to hit a hero. You make your opponent spend a card or equipment, which really isn't bad since this is an aggro deck, but a deck that could outtrade you and just wants to block the Banksy each turn you swing with it will give Max a hard time. I think we could see a world where you're sideboarding the Banksy and the Hanabi Blaster for certain matchups, but I think even though I've really only tested Banksy, I think it is not the best thing you could be playing. Hanabi Blaster seems way better. There's so many turns where I boosted 3 times and not swung Banksy, or even on turns I did swing Banksy, I could have played a 4th boost card and then swung the Hanabi Blaster. So I think Hanabi Blaster is probably the play, but I think it might be too early to tell really which weapon is better. And I do like Banksy. I think it's a cool weapon. It's a cool design. Finally, we have not a gun for Mechanologist, even though only one hero can, well, I guess 2 heroes can play it, but I don't know how you're going to crank in Shiana. But I think Banksy's really good. And for a synergy spec, I think this is definitely the best synergy spec we've seen because it makes perfect sense with Max's kit. The final hero in the set, Tekla Vossen, Esteemed Magnate. This is the other hero that's kind of like a wizard. He has 4 intellect and 40 health, and he can play Evos from his Banish Zone, as well as once per turn as an instant, pay 3 resource to be able to play your next Evo as though it were an instant, and when you do, draw a card. What is an Evo? It's a new type of card. We will talk about it when we get to the Evo segment. And the ability there, a little similar to Kano, although you don't get that top deck searching. It's everything you know is already in play. So, is this ability strong? Is this ability weak? It seems pretty good. The ability to play Evos from your Banish is really good when you consider that we do already have Evos that are instants. If you boost an Evo away, mainly those instant Evos, I think all of the instant ones are free. You just get a free Evo. Evo is really important for Evo upgrade and some of Tekla Vossen's other cards that care about the number of Evos you have in play. You don't particularly care which Evos, but the blue ones are generally the best to have, although there are Evos that are also bases, but bases are all Evo mechanics stuff we need to talk about when we get to the Evos. The real question of is Tekla Vossen good is, are Evos good? And I think Evos are definitely in a strong spot from the little bit I've played and seen. I do really like the idea of Evos, and I do like the attacks that they can play. I think Tekla Vossen isn't the hero that needs the most experimenting, but I definitely think he does need a lot. I think with what people are doing with Max already is pretty close to how I think we'll end up seeing Max. I have it a little different way right now, but I think at some point the way I have it built and the way that a lot of the other people have it built will sort of come together, and it will really make a really good aggro pile of just like strong boost effects and really good late game. But Tekla Vossen has a really good late game once he gets set up. It's just a question of can he get set up without losing too much. I think he can because of how much block he just gets with his Evos. At some point, though, he will be in a spot against some matchup where he just can't build Evos, or his hand will just be terrible because his hand is full of not cards that can attack. But I think once he gets set up, he's definitely one of the stronger heroes in the game. Tekla Vossen's weapon is the Teklo Leveler. Teklo Leveler is a brand new 2-power, 2-handed gun. It has the effects, if you have 1 or more Evos equipped, this gets once per turn action, pay 3 resource to attack. If you have 2 or more, it will only cost you 1 to attack. If you have 3 or more, the gun itself gets go again. And if you have 4 or more, the gun gets +1 power. Really good. I think this will be his weapon of choice. Obviously, unless you're playing the equipment from the round the table decks, but I think those might be a little too niche for Tekla Vossen to end up playing in Constructed. I think this is the perfect weapon that definitely fits his type of strategy of getting set up with Evos as the main idea, not really caring about anything else at that point, and then going into a strategy of swinging once or twice a turn with these strong Evo upgrade attacks and even throwing in a few boost cards in there. And this sort of fits with that cheap boost attack theme that this has. Go again, you can swing with this into a bigger Evo upgrade attack. So I really do like this weapon, and I can't wait to see what Teklevasin can do with it. Before we move on to the Mechanologist legendaries, we are going to take a look at the Fable in the set, and that is going to be Master Cog. Master Cog is a yellow Mechanologist resource. It is a gem. It is legendary, meaning you can only have one in your deck. It has the effect when you pitch this card, you may put a steam counter on an item you control with Crank. Is this card good? Probably in Dash. I don't think this card will ever see play in Teklevasin. I don't think he will ever play a single Crank card. And if you're playing this card in Max, I feel like it's still pretty bad. In Max, we do have blues that we want to be pitching, but they're also cards that we're just fine playing. Most of the time, we just want to end up playing out our whole hand, and having to pitch this card does feel a little weird. The problem I mainly find with this in Max is Max really wants that resource straight away, and you could think of this as a blue in Max since it puts a counter on a Hyperdriver, lets you keep it around for another turn, but I just think that doesn't really give you what you want out of a pitch in your deck. I'd much rather just have a blue. However, in Dash, I think this card could be really good. This lets you extend the lifespan of an item, and your deck's mostly about items. The only problem I think Dash might have is her deck might have too many cards that don't block if you include Master Cog and a few other items. So I think that could be the main reason not to play it, but this will definitely be a card that will be experimented in Dash and could, in theory, be pretty good inside of Max. But other than that, I don't think this card is as good as something like Plague Hive turned out to be, although I could be wrong. I was wrong with Plague Hive. I said I thought it would be a little niche, and then it turned out to be probably one of the best Fableds we have in the game. Next, let's talk about the legendaries and equipment. The reason I have to specify is because we have a brand new legendary card, Singularity. Singularity is a 6-resource red Mechanologist action construct. It has 3 block, and it is a legendary Teklevasin specialization. It has the ability transform your hero, weapon, and 4 Evos you have equipped into Teklevasin the Mechropotent. It enters the arena with life equal to the hero it transformed from, which pretty much means you just keep however much life that you had before you played Singularity. Teklevasin the Mechropotent is a Shadow Mechanologist Demi-Hero Equipment Evo. He has 6 power, 6 block, 3 intellect, and a star for health, but it's however much health you had before. Teklevasin has 5 abilities. Action for 3 resource, banish 2 cards from your soul attack. Whenever this attacks a hero, they discard a card. Your Mechanologist attack action cards gain Go Again. This counts as having 4 Evos equipped and Battle Worn. So this card really does a lot. You need 4 Evos equipped, but your main game plan is wanting to have 4 Evos equipped. So it's really just trying to draw the Singularity past that. All of the cards that were underneath your Evos, and even your hero and your weapon, go to your soul. This becomes your new hero. So if it is ever destroyed, even though it is battle worn, any equipment destruction effects will lose you the game because your hero will be destroyed. This hero is also Shadow, So effects that work against Shadow Heroes will work against Teklo-Vossen the Necropotent. However, your deck still cannot include Shadow cards because you do not start as a Shadow Hero. A nice thing is this counts as having 4 Evos equipped, so all of your Evo upgrade synergies will still be at 4. If you do play Fabricate, you can go past 4 Evos. You can go to like 5 or 6, which is really nice. This is also an Evo, so other Evo synergies like Fabricate giving it +1 block do work. The 3 Intellect does seem a little bad, but since your deck is built on playing a lot of blues, you'll probably be fine. It costs a blue to use his attack, and even though his attack itself doesn't get the go again, you can still come in with like a strong Evo upgrade attack before it, since it will get the go again from his 3rd effect. And the 3 Intellect is sort of supplemented by the fact that when he does swing, they'd have to discard a card. Other than that, I think this card is really good. I think you'll play it in Teklo-Vossen, but I don't think it'll be your main win con. You'll probably only play it against heroes that can't destroy equipment, because then they can't just kill you straight up. So don't play this into something like Guardian. Don't play this into... Well, I guess if you play it into Dromai, don't block with it a lot, because Tommy will just eat you if you block with this a lot. So do be careful. I think this is a very, very cool card, and I hope we see more Demi-Heroes in the future. The question of do I like this over Leviathan more is tough to say. I think mainly Blasphemet. I guess they're the same card, but Blasphemet to me feels like this really strong value engine that can let you live and keep fighting even stronger than you did before for another 5 or 6 turns. Where this feels like for the next 5 or 6 turns, you're just trying to keep your opponent on the back foot even harder than you probably already have them in if you have 4 Evos equipped. But I do think this card is very cool. And when we look at some of the new Evos, you'll see why this thing could be so powerful, because of some of the effects that they have when you transform into a new Evo. As well as you'll probably only get maybe 5 or 6 attacks with this. Your hero and your weapon is 1. Your 4 base equipment are 2, and then your 4 Evos are 2. So you'll get 5 attacks with the bare minimum. But any cards underneath those Evos, so if you played red Evos, if you've played the red instant Evos, you'll get more attacks. But generally you'll be trying to get, you'll have around 5, I think, in most games. Moving on, we have Hyper X3. Hyper X3 is a Mechanologist helmet with 1 block. It has the effect when you banish a Hyperdriver from boosting, put it under this. And once per turn, when a Hyperdriver is put under this, if there are 3 or more Hyperdrivers under this, draw a card, and then it has Battle Worn. This card's really cool. It does take a while to stack up, but I think if you're playing Max, this is a great helmet. I would really only play this, though, in a few situations. There could still be an argument to play AB3 in Max. So obviously in Arcane, like main Arcane, like Wizards, you're going to be playing Visitronic, because Achilles have 1 AB for your other Arcane matchups. As well as, if you're not on Mechanoid, I could consider just playing Crown of Providence instead for the extra block in the cycle, because in some matchups this effect just won't do anything. It is just 1 block Battle Worn and a mech piece for your Mechanoid. But for the way I've been playing Max, I love this helmet. I'm on a Mechanoid mainboard list with 9 drivers, and where I've only triggered this card draw a few times, it has won me the game when I have. So for a Mask Momentum that sometimes comes online and is a guaranteed card draw, this card definitely seems really cool. Next, when I go over reprint, we're just going to talk about it a little bit, not too much. Tekla Foundry Heart is being reprinted here, I believe in non-foil. This makes perfect sense since Dash and Max both really like this chess piece. It's a mech only set. I believe it was the only mech legendary prior to this set so you might as well just reprint it. Teklovasin won't play it because he wants a base chess piece, but that's perfectly fine. Adaptive plating is a brand new type of equipment. It is just the mechanologist equipment and it is one block. The reason for this is because of modular. Modular is a keyword that means it can be equipped into any zone and it has the subtype of the zone it's in. As an action, you can pay 0 resource to just move it to another zone, although this will take up an action point. It has Blade Break for its one block, and it has another new keyword, Galvanize. Galvanize says when this defends, you may destroy an item you control. If you do, this gets +2. Galvanize is a keyword we'll be talking a lot about later because there are a lot of cards that have that effect. But for this piece, you can think of it as a 1 block or a destroy an item you control and 3 block. Pretty cool. I don't know what slot this will be played in the most or who will play it. Maybe if this was a Guardian card and an Aura, it would take the boot slot, but I mean, mechs do have pretty good equipment already. For helmets, you could play Hyper X3, Crown of Providence, or you could be playing the Visiatronic model into Arcane Damage. For your gloves, you have the brand new Cogrex base arm, which we will be talking about in a little bit, as well as Galvanic Benders, or I guess any other generic arm if you want more damage. For chest, you obviously have Teklo-Heart or a base. I don't think any mech is going to play not Teklo-Heart or a base. And then for shoes, you have Achilles Accelerators and also Cogrex base. So there really isn't a slot. And every mechanologist weapon is two-handed, so if this could be an offhand, there's no chance to actually do so because there's no one-handed mech weapon. I think in the future this could be a lot better if this could be equipped into the offhand slot and the other offhands weren't as good. Again, if this was Aura and playable in like Vincent, it could just be a free 3-block blow up a Runechant you control. That would be really nice, but for Mechanologist, there's not really a slot you want to put this in. I think also you may be able to play 3 of it, so it could be pretty funny. Moving on, let's talk about some of the common equipment. We're going to talk about all of the base equipment. Base equipment are what you need to put your Evos onto. You can only Evo onto base equipment. All of the starting, common, and I guess also token equipment are bases. And they all have base in the name for the basic equipment. Starting with the most complex set, the Cogrex set. Cogrex base head and all of the Cogrex pieces enter equipped with a steam counter. They also all have an instant effect that costs 1 resource. The head has you remove a steam counter to shuffle a Mechanologist attack card from your Banish Zone into your deck. Also, all of them you have boosted this turn. So I'll just be reading what the effect does for the 1 cost instant if you boosted this turn. This effect I think is fine. It helps you in the late game a little by shuffling something you might have boosted earlier. I don't think this is the strongest piece, but I think the Cogrex set is the best, and since you're playing for Cogrex in pretty much every matchup for every Teklovasin deck, or maybe I guess if Dash Evos are good, and even if you want to play a base head in max for an Evo, you're going to play this helmet. It just adds you that little 1 card return if you ever have an extra resource on some turn. The chess piece lets you pay 1 resource to remove the steam counter and gain 2 resource, making it sort of a mini Foundry Heart activation. This is really strong in Teklovasin since for that 1 turn, maybe when you're about to equip a base chess piece, you can spend your 1 resource to gain 2 and then get the 4 for your soul processor. So, pretty cool. I do like this chess piece. I don't think it's the best one. I think the next one is definitely the best one of the Cogrex bases, but obviously the Cogrex bases are the best. You'll be playing all of them. Cogrex base arm lets you remove the steam counter to give your next Mechanologist attack +1. This can boost the weapon. So if you're playing Banksy, you can come in for 4 with a Banksy. Of course, this is just a +1 damage throughout the game. I think the real choice for max players are going to be, do you want this or do you want Galvanic Bender? Since this is a +1 damage and Galvanic Bender is a 1 block, I think that's the main trade-off, as well as you get the Evo instant, the red instant gloves if you do play these, or I've seen maybe the yellow ones too. I think both are fine, but this glove is the aggressive option for max. So mainly if you're not playing Mechanoid, you should be playing the Cogrex base arms. And then finally, the Cogrex base legs gives you an action point for removing the Steam counter. Pretty much a trade-off for not playing Achilles accelerators. If you need the action point in your deck, this is better than Achilles, and you also don't need the AB, because for 1, you don't lose your shoe. In some Mechanoid strategies, sure, I would consider this in max, but for max, I want to save my 1 card slot, so I'm just playing Achilles anyway, and also he doesn't care too much for the extra action point a lot of the time, although it is very useful. Don't get me wrong. Having the extra action point in max is very useful, but you still need to have crank an item to swing with Banksy, so if you are on the Banksy plan, you will need to crank the Hyperdriver anyway, instead of just gaining the 1 action point. The next set of base equipment is the Teklo base. All of them just have Blade Break 1. I don't think these are as strong as the Cogrex base, however, they are still really good. Something that they did say in the rules announcement was that if you block with one of the Teklo base and then use an instant speed Evo effect, either an actual instant or one of Teklo Vassen's, they do come off the combat chain before they are broken, so they do not become destroyed when the combat chain closes. Really cool tech. I don't think Teklo Vassen will play these because the Cogrex ones are so good, but they're there, and they are probably going to be pretty good in sealed and such, and draft for your pre-releases, which this video might be up after the pre-releases, but for any other sealed or draft events. The last set is the token set, which is the Proto Base. In the Proto Base, if you're playing any limited format for Bright Lights, you'll be given a full set of these. These are just to make sure that any Evo that you do get can be played still if you don't get the Cogrex or the Teklo base pieces. That's pretty much it. There's no reason to play these in Constructed over the Cogrex set, and I guess you could have an argument for playing it over Teklo, but if Cogrex is just a direct upgrade, there is no point in playing these in Constructed. Moving on, let's talk about the Evo equipment. The Evo equipment are all cards that you put in your deck. They all can be played on top of bases. Some of these equipment are bases. We will be talking about them. Starting with the Evo Steel Soul pieces. These are the pieces designed for Teklo Vassen to be keeping on, but they have effects that do things when something is put over them. So that's kind of the synergy with Singularity, because you'll trigger all of their effects when you play Singularity. All of the Evo Steel Soul pieces cost 4. They are blues. They have 3 block. They are all also bases, so you can play more equipment over them, as well as they all have an effect of when this transforms into an Evo with a different name, from or into, and if that Evo is a hero, trigger twice. So they all have that type of effect. We will just be reading the effect. Steel Soul Memory will give you 1 intellect. Steel Soul Processor will give you 3 resource. Steel Soul Controller will put a attack with power 6 from your graveyard, 5th from the top. And Steel Soul Tower will give you 1 action point. The idea here is that when you have these and you transform into Teklo Vassen, you will get +2 intellect, 6 resource, put 2 attacks from your discard pile, 5 from the top, which means you'll draw both of them because you'll now have 5 intellect, and then you'll have 2 action points. So you can use those 2 action points to swing twice with the 6 resources you'll be getting from the Soul Processor, as well as you have 5 intellect to dig to your 2 attacks that you put 5th from the top. That's kind of the Exodia moment, I guess. I don't see how someone can come back from that if you have these all equipped, but you're not going to always have all of these equipped because they are bases. You'll be playing their effects throughout the game. You can't play an Evo Steel Soul Memory on top of another Evo Steel Soul Memory to get the extra intellect because it has to be a Evo with a different name. So do know that, but I think all these are really cool, and you're also going to play other equipment in those decks anyway. So I do like these. I think these are maybe not... Well, it's hard to say if these are the best Evos because the Evo Breaker set is pretty good too, which we'll talk about next. But they fit a different niche. So I think these definitely are really good. And you'll be playing 3 of each of these in Tekla anyway because they're blue block 3s. So why not? Moving on, we have the Evo Breaker set. All of these are instants. They are not bases, unlike the Evo Steel Soul pieces. And when all of them come into play, if you had a base head or base whatever, so base, head, shoe, whatever, you transform it, and X hyperdrivers you control, which is just however many you want. You can choose however many. And then you prevent damage equal to twice the amount of drivers. So if you had 3 drivers, you get 6 damage prevention. Pretty cool. Kind of like a D-React here. Pretty nice. So I won't be reading that effect on them, but pretty much they say if you have a base of whatever this piece is, transform it and however many drivers, prevent that much times 2 damage. All of them also have a when you boost effect, you can destroy a card under it, so we won't be reading that either. Evo Circuit Breaker shuffles 2 attacks from your Banish Zone into your deck. Evo Atom Breaker gives you 2 resource. Evo Face Breaker gives you that attack plus 2. And Evo Mock Breaker gives you a Quicken token. I think Mock Breaker is pretty niche. I think it could be okay, but I really don't think it's as strong to just include this card. I think the other 3, though, are incredibly strong. Face Breaker gives you 2 damage, which at most you're only going to get the 2 damage once, but if you ever put any drivers under it, you'll get it more times. Very nice. Atom Breaker gives you 2 resource. Again, could only be once, but if you have hyperdrivers under it, you'll get more. And this also triggers multiple times in the same turn. And it is a May though, so you don't have to use it. And then Circuit Breaker is definitely the best one, shuffling cards back into your deck. This will be a set better suited for an aggro deck, probably max. So you'll be able to get a little bit of recursion, a little bit of more damage. I don't think you're going to play the base chest piece, and you probably won't play base shoes. But if you do, I guess Mock Breakers could be okay. Mainly for the head and the gloves, if you consider them in max. Next, we have the rare Evos. Evo Command Center. All of these yellow Evos are 3-block Blade Break yellows that cost 3, so these next 4. All of them aren't bases. They have Blade Break, and they just transform onto a base. Evo Command Center says, once per turn instant, destroy a card under this. Your next weapon attack gains when this hits draw a card. Engine Room has the destroy a card under it to make your next weapon attack cost 1 less. Smooth Bore gives your next weapon attack plus 1 power. And Evo Thruster lets you attack an additional time with a weapon you control. These could be good in Dash. You could see these in Mac. Actually, I guess you could see these in really any of the decks because all of them are sort of based on their weapon a little bit, or all of them really like their weapon. Tekla can suddenly shoot his gun for free for 4 an extra time, and if it hits draw, Max can suddenly swing it for 4 draw. Like, in Max is probably the most insane. But also in Dash, you can just like soup up the gun for 1 swing and then come in. So I don't think these are the best because they are 3 resource to play, but they are 3 blocks. They also don't have any go again, so they will end your turn. I think these are okay. You'll probably only see them in limited formats, though, but I think that is really where they shine. The next set we kind of already talked about. It is the equipment from the Round the Table decks. I believe these are only cold foil in this set, though, so you'll only ever pull these in gold foil, I'm pretty sure. So we're not going to talk about them. Also, I don't think Blaster is in this set either. Moving on to the sorry about that. The common Evo pieces. The red common set is the Evo Sentry base set. These are just 2-block battle worn, and their bases. You'll see these probably in only Teklevasen because they are easy to play bases that can go in and out of your Evo Steel Soul memories. So these are probably just the best ones you could be playing, and I really like them, and I think they're good. All of them are just 2-block battle worn. Next is a 0-cost yellow set. These are the, I guess there's no like set name for these ones, so I'll just read them. The Evo Data Mine is a 2-block. They all have 2-block blade breaking, cost 0. Once per turn, instant, destroy a card under this, draw a card, and put a card from your hand on top. This will be, I would have said good with Hyper X3, but they take up the same slot, so not really. Battery Pack lets you put a steam counter on an item with Crank. Cog Splitter lets you put an item from your hand of cost 0 or 1 into play. And Charging Rods makes a Quicken token. These seem like the attack version of the other yellow set we talked about. You'll probably only ever see these inside of Sealed and Draft, so that's about it. And then the last Evo set in the set is another instant speed set. This is a yellow set. Evo Zoom Call says when it's equipped, you can banish a card from your hand if you do draw a card. Buzz Hive gives you a resource. Whiz Bang gives up to 1 attack plus 1 power. And Zipline gives you Go Again. These are all yellow cost 0 block instants. I think these are fine. I'd rather play the red set, but these are sort of like reactions, more or less. Of all the Evos, I think the best ones are the Sentry bases, the Breakers, and the Steel Souls. Those are going to be the main ones you'll be playing. Probably in Teklevasen. I don't know if you're going to play the Breakers in Teklevasen, but you'll definitely be playing the Steel Soul memories and Processor and Controller and Tower, as well as all the Sentry base equipment inside of him. And maybe you might consider 1 or 2 of the Breaker equipment. Probably the helmet, maybe the chest piece. But other than that, I think you're really only going to see a few of these in Constructed, and you'll definitely see all of them in Draft and Sealed, because I think that's where pretty much all of these can actually shine. Next, we're going to talk about the Evo Upgrade cards. Evo Upgrade is a mechanic that pretty much means you do something for each Evo you have equipped. We'll read the specific effects when we get to each card. Starting with one of the 2 cycles, the not Evo Upgrade cycle, Annihilator Engine, Terminator Tank, and War Machine. All of these are 6 cost red, 6 power, 3 blocks, and they all have the following effects. When if you have 1 or more Evos equipped, do this effect. If you have 2 or more, cost 3 less. If you have 3 or more, gain overpower, and if you have 4 or more, gain +3. The only thing that actually changes on these cards is the have 1 Evo equipped effect. Annihilator Engine destroys all cards defending it when it hits. Terminator Tank makes the hero discard a card when it hits. And War Machine makes the hero it hits destroy their arsenal. Terminator Tank and War Machine are the 2 best ones here, although Annihilator Engine could be a sideboard choice for some matchups. I've seen decks not include Annihilator Engine, which I think is fair. The effect is quite niche, But Terminator Tank and War Machine are definitely the two best ones, and probably should be included since they are face-up pummel and CNC on pretty good cards. The other cycle is the Protocol cycle. All of these are some disruption effect. They all cost 3 and have 3 block, but all of their power shifts. The red one is Demolition Protocol. It has 7 power. It has Evo Upgrade. When this attacks a hero, remove all steam counters from up to X equipment, items, and or weapons they control, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. This card is good against Teklovasan to get rid of, I guess, all mechs in theory. This card is good into Teklovasan to remove the steam counter from his Cogrex equipment. This card is good into Dash, New Dash to reset her pistol. This card is good into Old Dash to reset her actual items. It can also pretty much destroy a Teklo Core or a Teklo Pounder. And this card could be good into Max to get rid of the counters on his hyperdrivers and or his Evo equipment that he may or may, or his base equipment that he may or may not be playing. I think this card is definitely just a sideboard card though, but if you are playing in the mech matchup, this card is an insanely powerful tool. Pulse Wave Protocol is the yellow one. It has 6 power and says Evo Upgrade. When this attacks a hero, they reveal X cards from their hand, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. Choose an action card with block less than X, then add it to the chain link as a defending card. Think of this as a Pulse Wave Harpoon, but for Evos instead of for the number of times you boosted this turn. Pretty good. It'll definitely see some play. Magnetic Protocol is a 3 for 5 at blue, and it has Evo Upgrade. The defending hero must defend with X equipment they control with -1 counters if able, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. Pretty good. Good into the Steel Soul Memory Temper stuff, because you could break them if they're low, if they went from a already 2 blocked Sentry into the Steel Soul. So, really nice. You'll probably only see these 3 cards in Teklovasan, but good card. It's a good blue. You'll probably play it anyway. The last Evo Upgrade Majestic is Steel Soul Enforcement. This is a brand new block type card. We talked about blocks in the last video, but blocks are pretty much just a block. They're not D-Reacts. Please don't Arsenal them unless they have ambush, but none of these have ambush. They just block. Evo Upgrade, while this is defending, get +X for X the number of Evos you have equipped. At 2 Evos, it becomes a 3 block. At 4, it becomes a blue 4 block. And when you get 5 Evos, it's a 5 block. Really good. I think you'll see this card inside of Teklovasan decks, because once you get to that late game point, this can be an easy 1-card cover-up on a lot of attacks. Moving on to the rares, we will only be reading the red cards for all of the... I guess for the rest of the video, we will only be reading the red cards when we talk about the different versions of the cards. But, I mean, I feel like I've done that before. Heavy Artillery is a 3-cost 6 power, 3 block. Evo Upgrade, the defending hero can't defend with attack action cards with cost less than X, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. Play this into an aggro deck with 1 Evo, and suddenly they're taking 6. It's really good. Also really good once you have Teklovasan equipped, because the only hero that can actually block this then just becomes Bravo. So, really nice. Liquid Cooled Mayhem, I believe, is also in the... I think this and the Mechanical Strength were in the Professor deck. So you might already have some of these. There are no common Evo Upgrade equipment, or common Evo Upgrade attacks. It's just Heavy Artillery, Liquid Cooled Mayhem, and Mechanical Strength. But if you need a refresher, Liquid Cooled Mayhem is a 4 for 6 with 3 block. That costs 1 less for each Evo. So it's just a free attack that can come in once you have 4 Evos. And then Mechanical Strength is a 3 for 5 that gets +1 for each Evo you have equipped. Pretty good. I like it. I think it'll see play mainly the red ones. I don't know if you'll play the blue ones because you probably want to be playing boost effects as your blues, but I could see some of the blues, mainly like Liquid Cooled Mayhem, see play. Moving on, we have items. This is probably going to be the last segment in the video because there are a lot of items. Alright, so starting with the Majestic items. Grinding Gears is a zero cost blue. I believe, okay, first before I talk about the items, every item in this set that isn't a reprint, because there is one reprint, has Crank. I will not be reading what Crank does because I already read what, actually not every item does. I will not be reading what Crank does. I will say if an item has Crank. All of them, but like 5 items in this set have Crank. So Grinding Gears, zero cost blue, Crank, enters with 1 at the start of the turn, remove 1 or destroy it. Action, target hero destroys the top card of their deck. Funny, janky mill deck, probably won't see the most play. It is a blue though, so you might play it in Dash.io, because it's a blue item you could play off the top with Crank, so you can get an action point. Prismatic Lens is a 1-cost yellow with Crank, enters with 1 steam at the start of your turn, remove a steam or destroy it. Once per turn instant, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a you put a Mechanologist item of the same color from your Banish Zone on top. So if you have say a Grinding Gears on top and you have a Fuel Injector in your Banish Zone, you can put the Fuel Injector on top. Quantum Processor is a yellow. It has Crank. It costs 1. It enters with 1 counter. At the start of your turn, remove 1 or destroy this. Once per turn instant, put an item, a Mechanologist item of cost 0 or 1 from your hand into play. Again, most of these items are for Dash. This is a Dash card. Stasis Cell is a 0-block blue. It has, when this enters or leaves the arena, activated abilities of target equipment can't be activated until the end of its controller's next turn. And then action, put this on the bottom of your deck, choose an equipment, it can't defend this turn, go again. This will be good in Dash. I don't think it'll see play in any other decks because it might be a little too slow. But an instant speed shutoff of an equipment with Dash is pretty nice. Tick-Tock Clock is a red 0-cost Crank. Enters with 1. At the start of your turn, destroy this and deal 1 to you unless you remove a steam counter. When a Mechanologist attack you control hits a hero, destroy this and up to 2 other items in the arena. Then deal X damage to them, where X is the number of items destroyed. You can destroy yours or your opponent's items, but you'll still deal the damage to your opponent. Really cool. You'll get at least +1. This will be mainly a mirror tool for any mech mirrors. Fuel Injector is a blue 0-cost item. As an instant, you can put it on the bottom to gain a resource, pretty much just for Dash. Same thing as Medkit, although this could see play in Control Dash because it's just a repeatable source of 2 life. It's a blue 0-cost action, put it on the bottom, gain 2. So pretty cool. Steam Canister is a blue 0-cost instant. Put this on the bottom of your deck. Put a steam counter on an item you control with Crank. Really good to keep your Majestic Crank items around. Polarity Reversal Script is a 1-cost item with Crank. Enters with 1 steam. Start of your turn, destroy this unless you remove a steam. Action, cards get -1 while defending your Mechanologist attack actions. A little like an Art of War, but not quite when we look at this next card. I do like it. I don't think it will see much play, though. Actual Art of War Penetration Script is a 1-cost yellow with Crank. Enters with 1 counter. Remove it at the start of your turn or destroy it. Your Mechanologist attack actions get +1. This card I love to play in Max. I'm considering getting rid of it because it could be too slow. This could just be another boost attack and Max would be a little better. But I do really like this card and I think it's pretty good. Security Script is a 1-cost blue with Crank. Enters with the steam. start of your turn, yada yada, remove a steam or destroy it. I'm going to stop reading that. Every item that has crank has enters with some amount of counters. I will read however many counters, and all of them say at the start of your turn, destroy it or remove a steam counter. Security script gives your mechanologist attacks +1 block. Pretty good. Probably just for dash to get that little extra block. Backup protocol red has crank, enters with 1, costs 0, and says instant, destroy this, return a red mechanologist attack from your graveyard to your hand. The yellow is the same effect but for a yellow mech attack, and the blue is the same effect but for a blue mech attack. Now we're getting to the cycles. These next 4 are cycles. I will only be reading the red one, and I guess I'll read the change, but most of them, most of them aren't the same, so I will be reading the change. Boom Grenade is a 0 cost with crank, enters with 1 steam counter. When a mechanologist attack you control hits a attack action card, hits a hero, destroy this and deal 4 to them. The yellow deals 3 and the blue deals 2. Pretty much just a dash card. I think this card could be pretty good in Max if you really need to test it, but I don't know. I think this card might be a little too slow. Dissolving Shield is a 0 cost, enters with 3 counters, and has crank. Instant, remove a steam counter, prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you. If this has no steam counters, destroy it. The yellow has 2, and the blue starts with 1. Hydron Collider is a 1 cost with crank. It enters with 4. When you boost an attack, destroy this. If you do, that attack gets +X, where X is the number of counters on this. Yellow starts with 3, blue starts with 2. Could be pretty good as a pump. I'd rather just play another pump though. Mini Force Field is a 1 cost with crank, enters with 4 counters, and has ward X, where X is the number of counters. Yellow has 3, blue has 2. Probably just a dash card. Okay. We have 4 items to go. Overload Script. This is only red. These are the next 3 cards. There are only 1 of them. Overload Script. 0 cost at red. Crank, enters with 1. Your mechanologist attacks get overpower. I think really only good in Teklevasan because he's really the only one that'll be playing attacks big enough, but probably also pretty good inside of sealed and draft because you'll be playing a lot of bigger attacks. MHZ Script is a yellow 0 cost. It has crank. It has 1 steam counter, and it gives all of your mech attack actions go again, meaning you pretty much don't have to boost. Really good. This one will probably be the best in draft and sealed because of the effect. Just you don't have to boost, as well as it gives all your other attacks that don't have boost go again. Really good. I do like this card. I don't know if it'll see play in Constructed, but I think it's definitely a strong contender. Then Autosave Script is a blue 0 cost crank 1 counter. Gives your mechanologist attack actions. When this hits, put it on the bottom. Pretty much similar to the MHZ, but I think a little worse. Could see play in those limited formats, but not so much in Constructed. And finally, the last item is a red hyperdriver. No yellow, no blue, just the red one. Fair enough. Even though this was a long section, this video is probably already long enough. We will do one more, because I think this section is a little short. It's a lot of rares and commons that we can easily talk about. We're going to be doing the scrap as well as the galvanized cards, as well as a card that has neither but kind of has scrap. So, Hyper Scrapper is a blue X cost 2 power 3 block. It has the additional cost to banish X items from your graveyard, so you'll have to pay 1 for each item you want to scrap. When this attacks, if it gets plus X power. If 3 or more hyperdrivers were banished, you gain 6 resource and go again. So it comes in for 5 for 3, and you gain 6 resource, you profit 3. Pretty good. I don't know how this will see play, but it is just a blue block 3, so some max decks that don't play Hyper X3, I'm sure will play this. Scrap Trader is a 0 cost red. It's an action. It's, I think, the only... Oh, I was going to say the only 2 block, but that's not true, because there are a lot more 2 blocks in a little bit. It's the only 2 block that can't go above a 2 block, I'm pretty sure. Scrap Trader has scrap, gain 2 resource for each card scrapped. What is scrap? Scrap is as an additional cost to play this, you may banish an item or equipment from your graveyard. So in Evo, I guess a base, if you have the Teklo base in your yard, as well as any of the items in the set. You gain 2 resource for each. Doesn't have go again. Probably really only good in Teklevasen, but I guess you could play this in Dash 2 to just play an item off the top. Hydraulic Press at red is a 3 cost 6 power 3 block. It has scrap. When this attacks, if it scraps a card, it gets overpower. I don't know if I've talked about overpower yet, so I will read it this once. Overpower is this can't be defended by 1 or more actions, sort of like a mini dominate. That is a rare, so the yellow is 5, the blue is 4. Rack It Up is a 1 cost 5 power 2 block. It has, if an item you control has been destroyed this turn, action cards get -1 block while defending this. And it has Galvanize. Galvanize, I talked about earlier. When it defends, you can blow up an equipment you control to get 2 block. So good, probably only in Max and Dash. Probably not in Teklevasen, since you're not going to be playing too many items. But these, if an item you control has been destroyed effects, definitely fit those two a little more. I think this card's effect is kind of niche when we look at some of the other ones, but it is a 1 for 5, so it is a nice breakpoint. Scrap Hopper is a 0 for 3 3 block. It has scrap, and when this attacks, if it scrapped a card, create a Quicken token. Good to set up for your next turns. I do really like this one. Soup Up is a 0 for 4 with 2 block. It has, if an item was destroyed this turn, gain Go Again, and Galvanize for the same Galvanize effect. This card I originally was playing in Max, but it did feel a little niche. Maybe I might revisit it if I build a non-Mechanoid Max, since I think more items will probably be destroyed in that deck. This could be a little better, but other than that, I think it's a good card, but I don't see what deck is going to play it a lot right now. Maybe Dash, but I think she would rather have an actual boost attack to filter the top card. Torque Tuned is a 2 for 6 with 2 block, Galvanize, and if an item's been destroyed under your control this turn, get Overpower. So pretty good big attack. Cognition Field is a 3 defense block with Galvanize. That's it. I think it's okay. You might see it sometimes. Infuse Alloy is a 0 for 4 2 block with Galvanize. Yes, it's just worse Soup Up, but that is a rare, and this is a common. Infuse Titanium is a 3 cost for 7 with 2 block and Galvanize. Pretty big attack. Pretty nice. These next two I think are actually crazy good in Teklevasen. Junkyard Dog is a 3 cost 6 power scrap. If it scrapped a card, gain +1. Pretty good. I think you'll see the blue in Teklevasen because it's a blue block 3 that can banish an equipment from your yard. Scrap Compactor is a 0 for 3 with Scrap. When this attacks, if it scrapped a card, you can play your next Evo as an instant. This is really nice in Teklevasan as well. I could see the red or the blue C play, maybe even both, since if you blocked with an equipment earlier, you can Scrap Compactor it and then be able to play it as an instant from your Banish Zone because of Teklevasan's effect. Next is Scrap Harvester. This is a 3 for 6. If it scrapped a card, put a steam counter on an item with Crank, probably just for dash. I don't think Max will play this, and Teklevasan definitely won't. And then the final scrap card, Scrap Prospector, is a 0 for 3. If it scrapped something, gain a resource. That was the scrap and all the galvanized cards. I think they're pretty cool. I like Scrap a little more than Galvanize, but I can see why they were put together because they do have a lot of synergy together. My personal favorites of these are definitely Junkyard Dog and Scrap Compactor, though, because I think they'll definitely see a lot of play inside of Teklevasan. So, I think that's going to be the end of the video. We got a little over half the set done. So next video, we'll be going over the boost cards, the other just standard Mechanologist cards, as well as all of the expansion slot cards. So I don't know how long this video is going to be, because they all end up being like 50 minutes somehow. I guess I do talk a lot. So with that said, I'll see you guys next week when we look at the second half of Bright Lights. Goodbye.